Kirsten Struve is the Assistant Officer for Water Supply Division at Valley Water, which is a pretty expansive job. I mean, she's responsible for the purified water program, the recycled water program, drought response, water supply planning, which is a world in and of itself, and maybe conversations, but also conservation as well. So that's, I mean, okay, maybe not reservoirs and a couple other things, but I mean, that's a very big portfolio. And then Justin Burks is the Senior Water Conservation Specialist and a conversational extraordinaire as well. And one other fun fact is that Justin is a water commissioner in Santa Cruz. And so that's takes a different perspective as well. So the second time today, I'm going to say this. Without further ado, I will turn it over to Kirsten and Justin, and you can grab the screen and I will tiptoe away.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Dennis, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. We're really excited to talk to you about water conservation as a way of life. As Dennis said, my name is Kirsten Struve, Assistant Officer for the Water Supply Division. Next slide, please. And just for those of you who might not know, the mission of the Santa Clara Valley Water District, also known as Valley Water, is to provide Silicon Valley with clean water for a healthy life, environment, and economy. And we do that by ensuring a clean, reliable water supply, providing flood protection, and being stewards of the environment. Next slide. We serve 2 million people in our communities in Santa Clara County, businesses of Silicon Valley, and our local agriculture. We are the water wholesaler and provide water through local retailers, 13 to be exact. And we also manage our groundwater basins. Next slide. Valley Water manages a diverse water portfolio. About half of the water is imported from outside of Santa Clara County. Recycled and purified water is a drought-proof, locally controlled supply, and we are hoping to grow its share from the 5% we have now to 10% in the future. And we also count conservation because every drop we don't use is available for the future. And only about 30% of our water is local water that we capture in our reservoirs and groundwater. So when we say imported water, what we mean is that it comes from the Delta and the Sierra. These systems are managed by the state and federal government and rely on the snowpack to supply water. And then the Hetch Hetchy system is managed by the San Francisco Public Utility Commission, and some of our retailers have contracts with that system, So we do count it in our 50% imported water, but we don't manage that part of it. And in drought, when there is no snowpack, we get less imported water and have to ask the community to increase conservation, which is our topic today. Next slide. We manage lots of water-related infrastructure, including 10 reservoirs, 3 treatment plants, and acres of groundwater recharge basins. So we very actively manage our groundwater. Next slide. And speaking of groundwater, Valley Water was formed in the 1920s because groundwater depletion was leading the land to sink as much as 13 feet in some places. And this chart shows how our land surface sank when groundwater was overpumped with the increasing population of Santa Clara County. And we started building our reservoirs back in the 40s and 50s. And then we started importing waters in the 60s and 70s to avoid that from happening again, because now that we are a very urban environment, there would be very significant consequences of subsidence, not just that we no longer have the aquifer to use. Next slide. In 2012, our board adopted a water supply master plan, which guides our investment to meet our demands until 2040. And we're currently actually updating that plan to project out to 2050. This ensure sustainability strategy balances securing what we have, so our existing infrastructure and existing contracts, expanding conservation and reuse, which we'll talk about a little today, especially the conservation part, and then also increasing flexibility or optimizing the system, which means when in some years we have more rain than we can store, and in other years we need the water that we would be able to store. So additional infrastructure could help us optimize how much we can capture in wet years and then use in dry years. Next slide, please. And one important effort that we're undertaking is developing a drought-proof supply. So in 2014, we opened the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center that's pictured here as a collaboration with the San Jose, Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility. So recycled water is treated wastewater that gets used for non-drinking water purposes like landscape irrigation and cooling towers. And our purification plant makes that non-potable recycled water to a higher quality, so it can be used for more purposes. This state-of-the-art facility has demonstrated the safety, cleanliness, and reliability of water purification. And we are taking the next step to develop a similar facility and use it for drinking water purposes. So next slide. What we're pursuing is using purified water to replenish our groundwater supplies. And that will involve constructing a new purification facility in Palo Alto and a 20-mile pipeline to our groundwater recharge ponds in the city of Campbell. Right now we use imported and local water in those ponds and actively manage the groundwater because rainfall is not enough. So this purified water would help us have a very drought-proof supply. Groundwater is our largest storage. So from there, it can be pumped for drinking water. And as I explained earlier, it also helps the ground not sink. We've gotten the endorsement of the Santa Clara County medical community for this project and are doing outreach to the public about the water quality as well as the large construction project that this will be. And I highly encourage a tour of our purification facility to learn more about this. Next slide. During the drought that we just came out of, our board took early and aggressive action to ensure we had a reliable water supply during the drought. This drought ended in its third year just recently, and it brought California's third driest year on record. Our drought status was severe, and the state's snowpack had dwindled to nearly nothing. And so our board took the unprecedented step to declare a water shortage emergency condition, and then also approved our very first enforcement ordinance for outdoor watering restrictions. Things can change very quickly. Our water supplies are healthy now. We have imported water allocations that we haven't seen in over a decade. But with climate change, we expect more frequent droughts and rain patterns changing. So we have to prepare for the future. And conservation is really important, especially during drought, to help us have a reliable water supply. We met the state's conservation goal during this time and converted nearly 3 million square feet of lawn and also had additional imported water. So some of the conservation milestone, in addition to the 3 million square feet of turf converted during this drought, we also doubled our staffing and increased the rebate amount. We've seen a lot of increase in our conservation program participation and are trending towards our long-term conservation goals. We launched a webinar series and are training professionals. And as you can see here, water use dropped 25% in the last 5 years, even though population is growing. So we are also seeing that after droughts, especially the previous one, we're not seeing as much of a demand rebound. So people are keeping on with the conservation, and we are also continuing our efforts to make sure that conservation is a way of life. And but we do have more work to do. Like during this last drought, our water efficient technology rebate for businesses didn't see any participation. So that's something where we're focusing next on the commercial and institutional rebates that we already have on the books and that we want to see used more. Next slide. Our board recently passed a water conservation as a way of life resolution, and these common sense guidelines support existing policy like our long-term savings targets and call for programs to support all sectors of our community to make permanent changes and use water efficiently. And if anyone is interested, we can send a link to the resolution. There were 13 guiding principles that our board passed. Next slide. In addition to the ordinance, we now have permanent water waste restrictions. As I mentioned earlier, we have had an enforcement ordinance during drought, but we worked with our retailers to come up with consistent water waste prohibitions that are listed here to ensure that water isn't wasted even during non-drought times. And anyone can call in the water waste and we will respond with education first. During droughts, we can issue fines, and during non-droughts, we will focus on that educational approach or refer things to our retailers. And just to mention what they all are, so runoff from our sprinklers, watering during the hottest part of the day so that everything evaporates, watering after rainfall, watering the commercial, industrial, institutional, decorative turf, having leaks that aren't fixed, and then improper washing of cars, buildings, and hardscapes. For example, like using a hose that doesn't have a shutoff valve. So with that, I will turn it over to Justin to talk more about our water conservation programs.
Thank you, Kirsten. Hey, everyone, I'm Justin Burks. I'm a senior water conservation specialist at Valley Water. So you've heard today about energy sustainability and food sustainability and energy rebates, and there's a nexus between all this and water. A 2018 study looked at greenhouse gas emission reductions from the 2014-2016 drought, and they found that the water savings reduced emissions 11% more than all the energy conservation programs in California during that same period of time. So when you save water, whether it's cold water or hot water, you're saving energy, you're reducing emissions, and you're making your community more sustainable. So I'm here to share information about the water conservation rebates, similar to the last session that many of you heard. Apply first and wait for approval before you go through any of Valley Water's over 20 conservation programs that we offer. You'll get a snapshot of a few of them today, and most of the photos today are from completed Valley Water projects. So when we ask ourselves, where do we save water? Where does it make sense to? It's important to look at where water is being used. So historically, indoor water use had been the focus of water conservation actions. So replacing your toilets, your shower heads, your aerators. Many of those are now WaterSense certified, high efficiency fixtures throughout the county. Of course, they're still out. Some inefficient models are still out there. Valley Water provides resources to replace those. Leaks are still a problem that can save a ton of water when they're resolved and also reduce emissions, as I had mentioned. But as Kirsten had mentioned, about half of our water is imported. Now, where do we use water once it gets here? About half of the water, as you can see, is residential. But when you look overall, about half of the water is outdoor water use. And then how efficient is water being used outdoors? Unfortunately, not very efficient. About half of all water used, or about a quarter of all water used outdoors is wasted, according to the EPA WaterSense program. So I'm really excited today to share you with information about why conservation is important and how Valley Water's funding and free programs can help your community, your business, your institution be more sustainable, meet your climate sustainability goals, and save water at the same time. So I already mentioned greenhouse gas emissions, but let's talk about directly to you. How would you save money? Well, an example would be with toilets. An average family upgrading all their toilets to a 1.3 gallon per flush toilet. Toilets are as efficient as 0.8. There's waterless urinals. If you go to a 1.3 gallon per flush toilet, your family could save 13,000 gallons of water per year, save over $130 in water costs alone per year. Not only will you save water and protect the climate, you're improving our long-term water supply reliability. You're assisting us in meeting our short-term water reduction demands. Conservation helps us keep more water in local rivers and reduce our reliance on the Delta where we import water from. And as many of you know, that the distribution and treatment of water is one of the top energy users in California. The EPA estimates that that if 1% of all homes converted all their equipment to energy efficient, it'd be equivalent to avoiding 80,000 tons of global warming pollution. So save water and save the planet. But I only have a few minutes to tell you how. So here's some tips. We recently completed a water conservation strategic plan, which is our guiding document and where do we prioritize our resources to save water. Effectively, in the long term, it's about saving water outdoors. That is the most effective way to save significant amount of water cost effectively, whether from an agency perspective or from a member of the public's perspective. So we offer free survey programs to coach the public on behavioral and irrigation and landscape changes they can make, whether they're cost effective or behavioral or upgrade opportunities. We connect them to rebates that are available to them. The landscape rebate program offers up to $3,000 per home or up to $100,000 per business or school or government property to upgrade their irrigation equipment, to install rain barrels and cisterns, to install flow sensors, to convert or downsize their turf into water-wise, locally adaptive landscaping. We also partner with many water retailers and cities to increase those maximum amounts. So we provide a lot of financial assistance to people as well as educational assistance to encourage them to save water. Valley Water also offers one of the best laundry to landscape gray water rebates in the state. This is an achievable do-it-yourself project for most people. It removes uncertainty that gray water can be installed safely and reliably. There was a study done with past sites in Santa Clara County by a San Jose State student, master's student a year or so ago, and found that the plants actually responded extremely positively to gray water. Their productivity increased. And the two actual photos in this oh, the next slide, sorry. The next slide, you'll see some actual photos of a gray water project. Fixing leaks. So installing flow sensors, installing sub-meters. So if you have housing goals and there's more ADUs or accessory dwelling units in your community, apply for our sub-meter rebate. We'll provide you $150 per sub-meter. Sub-meters will save 10 to 30% of water use than compared to them not being in place at all. Valley Water also offers free landscape water use budgets to nearly 4,000 properties in Santa Clara County. This includes parks and schools and office parks, where people can actually see how their water use compares to how much water they should be using. And Valley Water's made significant investments and partnerships with local cities and local water retailers in promoting advanced metering infrastructure. We're making progress and really looking forward to these meters being more expansive throughout Santa Clara County so that people don't have to wait 30 or 60 days to know whether they have a leak. They can be notified nearly immediately, and then they can take control over their behavior or prioritize what they need to upgrade or resolve to save themselves money, reduce leaks, and save the environment. And advocate for sustainability. So we have the water efficient technology rebate. You'll see a slide about that in a moment. Valley Water has a model water efficient new development ordinance that we really encourage local municipalities to advocate for, so that when we have new development, it is as efficient as possible. And if you're a representative or a decision maker, partner with us. We want to partner and find how we can make our funding go further. And if you're not with a partner agency, apply for our rebates, because we'll give you money when you apply first and wait for approval. So this is a quick snapshot of our various rebate programs. We have a rebate program for every type of property, every person, water saving project in the county, whether it's a financial program or an educational program or a free service. And as I had mentioned, 3 of these 4 photos are from a gray water system. The lower left one is actually a combination of a gray water project with a rainwater capture, where that dry creek bed is collecting, is basically serving as a rain garden during the wet season, and the plants on its peripheral are being irrigated with gray water during the dry season. Our landscape rebate program, as I mentioned, can give your property thousands of dollars. And if you're part of an HOA or an institution or business that I mentioned, it's $100,000. And when we partner with agencies, it's even more than that. So we provide a lot of incentives to encourage people to transform their gardens into more sustainable, reliable ecosystems that they can also enjoy. Not only do they save water, they provide habitat for pollinators, they support healthy soils in the environment. And one thing I wanted to touch on is sometimes people they may not want to participate in our programs because they want to keep their lawn. Look, people have reasons to have lawns, but I sometimes remind people, have you ever had a picnic by a gas station sign? Like a lot of those still have lawns next to them. No one's using those lawns. Think about how we can transform those spaces into actual parts of a community that support water efficiency and multiple benefits. Another challenge that people have, like from the home space of wanting a lawn, we don't force you to take out all of your lawn. You can downsize your lawn. We also have the irrigation rebate upgrades that I had mentioned. So maybe you keep your lawn, but you apply for our irrigation equipment upgrades. So now you get financial assistance from us to have the best equipment on the market, keep your lawn and landscape looking verdant and beautiful, and you're using significantly less water while you're at it. So let us help you come to where you're at in saving water for the community and your own bottom line. Here are some additional examples. So the photo on the left, I think that's what people typically think of, like xeriscaping, but California native plants are not all desert plants. There are hundreds of thousands of plants out there that we have tens of thousands of plants out there that can qualify for our rebate program. So there are a plethora of options out there. Valley Water offers, we actually recently developed this irrigation scheduling tool. This is a free service. You can go to valleywaterscheduler.com, type in your property information, what your landscape features are like, and it will spit out an estimated irrigation schedule for you. So if you're lucky enough to already have a smart irrigation controller, the timer that turns on your irrigation system and turns it off, even smart controllers have to be programmed properly. So this tool helps you do that. If you don't have a smart controller or you don't know what I'm talking about, you may have a conventional controller, and we'll give you potentially a couple $100 to upgrade to a smart controller. But this tool would also work with a smart controller. So this is a great way to even give yourself a sense of like where you're at and how you're irrigating your landscape. One personal anecdote is like sometimes people I've heard from people, well, I'm really hot, so my plants are hot too, so I'm going to water them at the middle of the day. But plants don't work like that. Plants don't want to transpire in the middle of the day unless they absolutely need to, and they collect water from their roots, not their skin or external parts like we do. So we have tools and resources to help connect people to the biology and the ecology of our landscapes without forcing them to be experts on this subject. We have a lot of information to make it easy and enjoyable for them to go on this journey with us in saving water. The Water Efficient Technology Rebate Program, this is a custom rebate program that offers up to $100,000 for retrofitting process equipment. So this could qualify for like a cooling tower upgrade, data centers changing to more air-cooled processes can qualify for this rebate. It's based on the amount of water saved. The rebate amount is based on the water saved or the cost of the equipment, whichever is less. But if you have a property and you have process equipment that's still working, but you need to upgrade it, and you have landscaping and you haven't ever upgraded it, apply for both programs. And if you maximize both, that's $200,000, $100,000 for landscape rebates, $100,000 for water efficient technology rebates. And we recognize that having custom options for process equipment is kind of challenging to market or to connect people with like, well, I have this, does that work? Valley Water offers a story map where you can see some past projects that went through this rebate program. And as I've mentioned, we offer free services and tools. We have an online shopping cart service where you can request water efficient shower heads and aerators. We'll send them to you for free. But sometimes people have their own personal choices in terms of like shower head type, or maybe we don't offer the type of faucet aerator or faucet screen that's going to fix or make your sink more efficient. Check out the WaterSense logo or the Energy Star logo. These are presented at your local plumbing store or big box store. When you see either of these labels, you know it's one of the most efficient on the market. Both programs, but particularly the WaterSense program, that is certified to perform just as well or better as a non-efficient model. So if you have any people in your household or decision makers that may have a mindset from when a lot of these equipment started rolling out on the market 20, 30 years ago, WaterSense helps solve that problem because they are independently verified to perform just as well as conventional plumbing and irrigation equipment. So check that out. All of our programs are available at watersavings.org, and we have additional resources at southbaygreengardens.org. So as we close, whether you're a homeowner or a business, check out our rebate programs at watersavings.org, whether we have free resources for your project idea or a few thousand or a couple $100,000 or a free service. Value Water is here to help make our community more sustainable in how it uses water and collectively reducing our greenhouse gas emissions for a more sustainable community. There's my contact information. I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Justin. There was some questions up and they kind of went away. It was about the rebate for the controller rebate, which I think it was, the question was involved was asking, you know, the rebate, I believe was, I think the question mentioned it was $150, but they were just asking, you know, what the going rate was for irrigation controllers.
Yeah, Nick answered that one online.
Okay, that's
saying,
why.
a good ballpark cost for a sub-meter would be around $200, and
Mhm.
provided a link to the sub-meter.
Yeah, okay, so it's a the net cost is relatively small. I mean, it's just a substantial rebate.
And when you think about how it's going to save your property 10 to 30%, even if you take the time into account, because you do have to get these certified by weights and measured, even when you take the time element, you're gonna have a positive ROI on the sooner side when you go through our rebate program. And
By
also,
the way, I did
go ahead.
check the Valley Water Scheduler. And even though I don't reside in Santa Clara County, it still let me play, and it's a good tool. It certainly, I have a relatively old controller, and one of the right now all that intelligence is on a yellow sticky note taped to a wall, and it's probably not currently up to date. So that's a good spur to have this online and take care of it that way, and actually maybe get a new controller.
Yeah, we hope you do.
But do you find it tougher to talk about conservation after the winter and spring we've had?
For me, I do not. For me, I remind people that we bought ourselves time. So what are we going to do with this additional time that we have?
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a temporal lapse in a drought. I
think our community, you know, generally, like I said, hasn't really seen increases in water use that reach pre-drought levels. So that's how we've been able to reduce overall water use despite population growth. And we're actually very efficient compared to other counties. So our per capita use is pretty low. Yeah, we thank our community for all their efforts. And the wet winter, you know, I don't think that it really stops people from wanting to do water conservation. What we see is that interest in our programs is still very strong and usually stays at really high levels even for a whole year after drought.
Mhm. And yeah, so we seem to be coming into another different winter with an El Nino formulation, but well, the old farmer's lament is that you either have too little or too much water.